context and time frame. These are things missing from this disciple story. There is no context that explains how it makes any sense for him to be a disciple and yet be as powerful as Bungie makes him out to be. Well, it's been a while. So I am in my new apartment at university. So if I sound different or there's like a bad echo or whatever, that's why. Everything is still have to figure out how to set everything up. Yeah, this is obviously on my second channel, and as a result of that, there's not going to be like any fancy intros or any fancy editing. In this video, I want to talk to you about something, and I'm not going to have any like background footage. Instead, I want to actually like just go through things, show you things, and most likely at least a good portion of the content in this video, it's going to be either referenced or it's going to be used for videos on the main channel. I can actually hear the echo in this room. That's really annoying. But anyway, as the title suggests, I don't know what the title is going to be. We're talking about Nezarec. Now, I think it's very safe to say people know that I have a thing for Nezarec, and that is because Nezarec is a very serious player in the end game of Destiny, and I truly believe that. And it's just the kind of person that I am, that when it comes to stories, I will figure out what the main end game story is, and that will be the priority for me. The side content, the side quests, the filler, I just won't really be interested as much. And for me at the moment, my focus is on the pyramid ships, the race associated with the pyramid ships, and of course the winnower. Okay, I'm gonna bring up a picture just because also we actually are recording. Good to know. Yeah, you're probably gonna hear an echo, you're probably gonna hear some cars in the background, and if you hear like the sound of a spaceship taking off, that's my washer in the kitchen. So okay, I'm gonna pull up this picture here, and this picture is okay. This picture here is the definition of what really drives me and what gets me to go digging really deep into things. And the reason why is because when you look at this picture, it represents so many massive aspects of the story that are hidden. Now, this picture, this isn't really, I mean, I don't know. I could be wrong, but I don't believe it has anything to do with Nezarec. But this picture is related to the pyramid ships. And when you look at, say, something like this picture, this is obviously coming from this here. This is probably a better picture to think about it. You look at these guys here, and you would say, well, then this is what the race looks like as associated with the pyramid ships. And it makes sense because, like Savathun has said, the witness was once mortal. People were blessed by the light, most likely given a golden age by the gardener, which concept art that I probably will show at some point in this video does show and indicate. But anyway, you would think then that these guys, which are the same race as this guy, that this is the race associated with the pyramid ships. And yet I have always maintained and I have always claimed that this race they were descended from ancient humanity. And that's just because, you know, it's not my own fan fiction that I really want to be true. It's just because all of the evidence points in that direction. And so when you go back to this picture then, it just raises that question even more. What is going on? What else is happening that we don't understand? And the real key piece of information that's missing is just context. It's context and it's a time frame. I'm going to give you an example of what I mean by a time frame. It is extremely possible that they once looked like this and turned into very simple. It's just due to adaptation. to a different, habitat or a different environment. The witness's eyes, I know the witness has been ascended or changed by the darkness, but I mean, you look at the eyes and the way the eyes are like that. That's an indication the eyes will generally get like that in extreme darkness. And so it's safe to say that if this is caused by adaptation and not by his ascension, this is just due to, I mean, you look at the pale skin as well, due to living in an extremely dark environment. And basically what I'm trying to say is there is a very plausible explanation for how they could have gone from this to the other thing. The issue then is the time frame. How much time happened between that first date and this date? And that is something we don't understand. Anyway, context and time frame. Those are the two key things that are often missing from a lot of these deeper mysteries. Exact same thing, you can apply that to the 9. Everybody's like, okay, well the 9 are just these entities that exist in planets or whatever, but in lore that was found in Forsaken, I believe, I think it was Season of the Drifter, that one very curious cryptarch basically interrogates Xur, and it's revealed that no, there's more going on than that. There was a bargain, there was a deal. And there's the little red box with like the dust inside or whatever. Again, that's a time frame where the 9 entities that existed in the physical bodies, they made a pact with something and then they ascended to where they are now. Which would also make sense because we know that they also want bodies themselves to come back. But again, context. If this deal existed, what was the situation surrounding that deal? Who was the deal made with? If they weren't made as the 9 from the beginning, if they were turned into that. And then the time frame, how long ago was this? We have no historical records of the 9 ever really existing as anything else. The only possible time frame indicator we have is lore about the Jovians, the Jovian colonies, and yet at the same time, that is very much shrouded in mystery, and we just don't know enough about that. So anyway, that's been a very long introduction and a very long ramble, but these are different things that really get me to dig deep into the lore. Precisely because I'm trying to find that context and I'm trying to piece together this time frame. And so that leads us to the main topic of this video, and that is Nezarec. Now Nezarec is very interesting because right away, and I'm just gonna give you something to look at. Nezarec is very interesting in the lore because straight away we were given context and we were given a time frame. And this is all in regards to a character that has ended up really consuming the Destiny lore community atmosphere at the moment, I would say. Mainly because of this season. The context around Nezarec is that he is not just a random dude. He is a god. More specifically, he is a final god of pain. And this obviously indicates that this is a malevolent entity, at being that's obsessed with pain. But it also implies that there is something supernatural going on with this character, and also the fact that there are texts written about him, and the fact that whoever wrote this text acts like a hype man for this character. This indicates as well that this character had a fairly large following of worshippers. So right away we're given context around this character. This is an entity that is seen as beyond supernatural and is worshipped by followers. And at the same time, we also are given information that this character has the ability to die and come back to life. And then future lore in Forsaken, where Nezarec says he visited the 4th tomb of Nezarec, just confirms this is a reoccurring thing that's happened over and over again. Presumably. Or, as my personal original theory was, I actually stated back in the day before Beyond Light that Nezarec most likely had been killed and his body had been cut up into pieces. And so my theory at the time was that these tombs were created around roughly the same time. Now at the moment I am not going with that, mainly because of the Church of Nezarec and Nezarec's, well, his last tomb, I guess we can say, but We'll get into that later. So we have a god of pain who can come back to life repeatedly. And also with the exotic, he is tied to the power of the void. And the key time frame here that is given to us is that this text was written in pre-Golden Age times, and when you look at the language that's used and the type of language, it is an indication that this was fairly ancient Earth. Also, I think it's in recent lore in this season. It's a very small tidbit, but when people in the world kind of get curious about Nezarec, well, one of the first things they say is, well, we went through the Cryptarch's archives. Again, showing that this character has a presence on Earth. At least, you know, in terms of recorded history. So we have, again, like I said, context and a time frame. Context being that this character is extremely powerful. This isn't just a random dude. At the same time, we know he isn't actually a god. And that's because usually in religions, the gods are the ones who created the universe. Except we know who did create the universe of Destiny 2, and that is the Gardener and the Winnower. Now this is coming from the Unveiling lore book released in Shadowkeep. I know there are some people who see that more as a metaphor. I don't. I take it literally. When it talks about an original Black Garden, I see an original Black Garden. When it talks about the two beings clashing their power together and creating multiple universes, I see that just as it is. So Nezarec isn't actually a god. He's just a dude. But he's a really powerful dude who is worshipped by other dudes, and he happens to have the ability to come back to life. Cool. The final thing in regards to context around Nezarec that we have is, and this is really important, and I don't want to say people don't take this seriously, but I think this is especially going to be important going forward, is the character's motivation. We have had Nezarec's motivation since day one. And it's very simple. To live for eternity. More specifically though, this is an eternity in which the light can be allowed to exist. And this is because in Nezarec's Sin, in the lore, it talks about new light. I can't remember exactly what the thing is, but you know what I mean. It talks about new light basically coming to life in this eternity. And light has a capital L, which indicates that this is the light of, you know, Destiny 2. Okay, so to summarize, Nezarec is attached to Earth. He was worshipped by people on Earth. He was worshipped as a god who can come back to life. We know he's not actually a god, he's just really powerful, but he can come back to life. And at the same time, although he is a malevolent entity, being linked to pain, he's okay with the light, all things considered. Another thing as well that's very important to note is that this motivation that's tied to him being okay with the light, again, was written way before the Golden Age, which means Nezarec made clear to his followers that he wanted to live for eternity and he was okay with the light before the collapse and before the Golden Age on Earth. Okay. Isn't it incredible that we have all of this information about this character, and this is before anything to do with the Witness shows up? Isn't that absolutely incredible? And so, what does this look like? I'm just going to let you think about that for a second. You have a character who is this powerful, who is given this much praise and hype, who has a goal to live for eternity. You think that this character is extremely important. You think that this character is an endgame player. And I'm not going to get into too much other things, but there are a lot of other indications in the world that do suggest that this character is very important. So now, and this is why I'm making this video, I want to fast forward to this season. Well, actually no, I want to go back to last season. And I'm going to pull up a different picture. By the way, if you are still here in this video, I have to give you credit because your attention span is very good. Maybe I'm boring you, but it is what it is. So last season, we ended up getting this bad boy. Now this is Nezarec's Whisper. Now I actually screamed and I did a little dance around my room when I found out that this thing existed in the game because this was huge for me. And actually, do you know what I will do as well? Is I'm gonna pull up a picture that my very talented excuse me, my very talented friend Meyerzier made. Good old Derek. Nah, I can't be bothered. If I find it, I'll put it up. But anywho, we ended up getting this glaive in Season of the Haunted. In Season of the Haunted, Eris Morn is in the Moon Pyramid. Now, people, I don't understand this. People seem to think that. Anyway, she looks at the Moon Pyramid. Okay, cool. She gets teleported inside the Moon Pyramid. Okay, cool. Looks up at the statue of the gardener. I'm going to call it the statue of the gardener. And then she gets teleported again. And she gets teleported, and I am very, very, very confident. I do believe that is this location. I do believe that she is teleported to this location. And people seem to think that this is in the Moon Pyramid, but the lore, I'm pretty sure, never says that. Pretty sure it never says that, so maybe it is in the Moon Pyramid, maybe it isn't. Excuse me. So she's in here, in this other location, and she finds the glaive. And the glaive has this power in it. And there's the talk of something sinister inside of it. This power is faint like a heartbeat, meaning it's connected to life. And it's faint and distant, meaning whatever it's attached to is far away, but it's still alive. And she whispers into the air, "Where are you?" And I'm going to be a good boy, and I'm going to double check this, because that actually, to me, that was very huge. Here we go. Where are you? She says that specifically. She didn't say, "Who are you?" She said, "Where are you?" implying that she knows who she's talking to. She says it into the air as a question, almost implying that she's expecting an answer. And this is, of course, connected to the glaive. So she's basically speaking to whatever is connected to the glaive, most likely. And when I read this, I understood two very basic concepts. The first is that Nezarec was going to be coming back soon. Bungie doesn't put a glaive in the game and call it Nezarec's Whisper unless they're trying to get people aware of this character again. Now, if you're into the lore and you do your own digging, then of course you're aware of Nezarec. You're probably aware that he's most likely an important figure. But before this season, a lot of people didn't even think the character was relevant. A lot of people thought that maybe the character had been retconned. The glaive acts as a way to get people ready for the mainstream lore that's on the way. What is mainstream lore? The story of this season, where you have characters naming Nezarec, where you have Nezarec's name in cutscenes, in text. It's all there. Everybody sees it, everybody knows about it. And so I saw that and I understood, okay, the glaive is saying that Nezarec is coming back soon. Sick. I'm not surprised, but I'm happy. The other really interesting idea is that I would nearly say there's a 100% chance that Eris has known about Nezarec for a while. And if you want to know, in my opinion, the latest she ever would have known about Nezarec, it would have been in the final cutscene of Shadowkeep when she goes into the Moon Pyramid. And I'm not going to say anything else about that, but that is a very, very important cutscene. I'll just say that. So I'm very excited. Okay, I see that the story that I have been following and I've been trying to piece together is starting to really move forward. And then we go up to the very top, to the flavor text. Rise, disciple, and bear this gift with pride. From Rock, disciple of the Witness. And that's where things start to go downhill. And I want to talk about why I'm not happy with this. And I want to talk about why it doesn't make sense. And I'm going to try not to ramble too much because I've already done a lot of rambling, but you need to understand this rambling is to create, again, the context for you to understand why I feel this way. We have a character who is extremely powerful, who has been hyped up to be extremely powerful. Even with the glaive, the character is dead. And yet, even though they're dead, their power in this glaive, this sinister power, this red glow and energy that we have seen elsewhere, it still is connected to their life force, potentially. And yet you are telling me that this guy was just casually recruited as a disciple by a guy that we have killed. By a guy who, all things considered, appears to be less powerful than this one. You need to understand that Rolk is the first disciple. You need to understand that under the sword logic, it is very unlikely that Rolk is the head of the disciples if there is a disciple under him that is more powerful. It is the way of the sword logic for the strong to destroy the weak. If Rolk is the first disciple, he is the strongest disciple, meaning, according to the current lore, people will probably be assuming that Rolk is more powerful than Nezarec. Well, let me ask you this. Has Rolk come back to life? No. Nezarec has the ability to come back to life. It doesn't really, I mean, and I'm going to say that this is connected to the light because it's the only thing it can be, but even still, it doesn't matter. This still makes Nezarec more powerful than. And so this is where things make me unhappy for two reasons. And I'm going to just tell you very clearly what these two reasons are. It has nothing to do with my own theories, my own fan fiction, whatever you want to call it. It's not copium, it's not whatever. These are very two valid and clear reasons that I think anybody will scratch their head and actually kind of go like, yeah, this doesn't really make sense. By making Nezarec a disciple, you are effectively putting him down the pecking order under Rolk. You are taking a character who has been hyped up since day one of Destiny 2. A character who has had more mentions probably than the Witness at this point and Rolk. A character whose helmet on the Bungie store that you can buy literally says Nezarec's reach has no limits. And even the strongest of Guardians are susceptible to it. You have all of this hype, all of this foreboding, all of this foreshadowing for this powerful entity who, even though he's dead and his body is cut up into multiple pieces, the relics that can potentially contain those pieces of body parts are emanating pure darkness. It's a power we've never seen associated with Rolk either. Rolk was purely technological. And even then, the technology he used, he probably didn't even understand because it was pyramid tech. This is, like I said, supernatural. This is paracausal. And this is associated with a character who is seemingly now less powerful than Rolk. The first reason why I am unhappy with Nezarec potentially being a disciple is because this takes a character who has been hyped up and built up, and it knocks them down significantly for no valid reason that I can think of. You are effectively nerfing a character in a way that I have never really seen before. The second reason that I am unhappy with this is because it doesn't make sense. And I don't say that in a way, it doesn't fit my headcanon. It actually doesn't make sense. And, you know, I've been planning a lot for these videos that I'm going to be making on my main channel, and the first one is going to be about Nezarec. And it's very, very difficult. It's very difficult to make videos on this character, knowing that it doesn't make sense. Very simply, as an example, the Church of Nezarec. The dude has a church named after him in a moon pyramid made out of pyramid tech. This isn't like Rolk where he had his little home souvenirs and he blue tacked them on the wall. The pyramid has a church made for Nezarec out of pyramid architecture. And when you realize that Nezarec was in that pyramid, his body was in that pyramid, it makes so much more sense. I saw somebody present a theory that this was Nezarec's church for him to worship the Witness. There is no evidence and there is no logic behind that whatsoever. This church was for Nezarec. And then you go all the way back to day one, where this character is used, even before the collapse, even before the Golden Age, this character is used being worshipped. And in Rourke's lore, some characters or some peoples would see his power and they would worship him, and he would be like, no, I don't like this. Nezarec loved it. He embraced it. Just makes sense that this church is for him. And so when I'm trying to research about this and I'm trying to write a video, it is so unbearably difficult to do that when you understand it doesn't make any sense. Why would whoever is manipulating the pyramid architecture, I don't think it's the witness, why would they make a church to a god or a holy character if they are, number one, not the highest tiered follower of the witness, and if potentially the witness is the one that should be worshipped, or the winnower? I would argue the winnower. But why? It's heresy. It's absolute heresy for a follower to call themselves the purest light and the darkest hour, the final god of pain. And then on top of all of that, it's so simple. It is actually so simple. You say that Nezarec is a disciple, a follower of the witness. But like I said in the very beginning of this video, we have known since day one what his motivation is. And that motivation is a double-edged sword against what the winnower wants. A universe that goes on for eternity. The winnower does not want that. And a universe where the light can exist and thrive. The winnower or the darkness do not want that. And like I said, this was before the Golden Age. Potentially before Nezarec became a disciple. This is a character who, by all intents and purposes, most likely would be an enemy of the darkness. So these are my two reasons. And the final reason, and this is the most obvious of them all. Oryx, in my opinion, was the greatest servant of the winnower. You can say whatever you want about the witness. The witness was not always that powerful. The witness was just some dude who got ascended and was reborn as the child of darkness. Yes, Oryx had the worms, but he had to claim and struggle and fight for everything he got. And in the end, he was worthy to speak one-on-one with the winnower. And the winnower even speaks highly of him. Oryx died, and he wasn't brought back to life, because that is against the sword logic. Oryx's son Nokris practiced necromancy, and just to show how clearly this is against the sword logic, not only was he banished, but all traces of his existence were wiped from Hive records. This is the same sword logic that the disciples and the witness follow. Why is a disciple allowed to die and come back to life multiple times? Not only is it against the doctrine of the darkness, but it is a sign of weakness. If he died, then something was stronger than him and beat him. Why would you want a lackey who keeps failing? Especially when you have others, especially when he isn't even the most powerful, allegedly. So all of this just goes against the fact that he is apparently a disciple. And that's really that. I could go into talking about... Thanks. I could go into talking about his death during the collapse. I could talk about most likely his betrayal. And I don't mean him betraying the witness, I mean somebody betraying him. But I'm just going to leave it at that. Context and time frame. These are things missing from this disciple story. There is no context that explains how it makes any sense for him to be a disciple and yet be as powerful as Bungie makes him out to be. There is no context to explain why he is allowed to die and come back to life. And like I said, I still believe it's because of the light. Do you think he's using the darkness to come back to life? Do you think he's using Hive magic to come back to life? Just to give you a little bit of an idea of what I'm on about, this isn't dead bodies being zombified and being brought back to life. This isn't like the Scorn. The dude is alive. Do you understand that? Nezarec is alive right now. He is in his spiritual form. That is a type of power that I have only ever seen, and I have looked. I have only ever seen this in regards to the light. The only exception being the throne worlds and the hive. And yet even then, in their throne worlds, they had bodies. This is different. It doesn't make sense, and it is a severe nerf of the character. So why am I talking about this as if it's still an ongoing situation? Surely you're thinking, well, but the cutscene says he's a disciple, so that's it. End of story. Deal with it. Deal with it. Okay, well then how come Bungie is continuing to hype him up? Why are his relics being treated as the key to this puzzle that will somehow help us so much? Why is he still being treated like the endgame character he has always been portrayed to be? And the answer is simple. Nezarec's story has still not been truly revealed. Nezarec's identity and his nature have truly not been fully revealed. If it doesn't make sense, you don't just make up reasons. You don't just jump through hoops. You don't force him to be a disciple in your headcanon just so it follows whatever the text in the game says. If it doesn't make sense, it is missing context. And there are events that need to fill in that context, and that is the time frame. And it is because these mysteries exist that is what gets me to go digging deeply into these things. And so that is where I'm at now with Nezarec, where I am very confident. I am still very confident that he is not truly a disciple. And if he was ever a disciple, that it was not really... Another thing, people are acting as if it's just canon and it's just a fact in the game that he's a disciple. Okay, yeah, these people also believed that the pyramid ships were the darkness. Who told us that the pyramid ships were the darkness? Characters in the world who had absolutely no idea what they were talking about. None of the characters who told you the pyramids were the darkness were alive during the collapse, were they? No. They see black pyramid ships that have supernatural paracausal powers, and so they're like, well, this has to be the darkness. Guess what? Bungie deceived all of us. Okay, that was that. Now the witnesses come in and people are acting like he's the big bad and the ultimate big bad. Doesn't make sense though. There's lore that goes against it. What does that mean? It means that there is context missing. Savathun says it clearly, and she never has lied about the same thing twice. The witness was once mortal. There's a time frame going on there that needs to be explained. I wouldn't be surprised if in Lightfall we get a backstory drop for the witness. And it's the exact same thing here. Who is telling us that Nezarec is a disciple? Aramis. How does Aramis know? She didn't even go in to the pyramid. Unless she was in that cutscene, which I doubt. A bunch of dirty fallen managed to get into a pyramid. They find a random body, and they just decide to casually cut it up. Which, by the way, the Fallen were known to barbecue babies, so like, are you even surprised that they just cut up a body for the sake of it? Like, it doesn't make sense. It's coming from an unreliable source, an unreliable narrator, to use the actual proper term, a character who is giving their opinion, but it shouldn't be taken as a fact. And the story moving forward does not reflect that this is the end of that character's, I guess, reveal. Anyway, that's going to be the end of that. It was definitely a rant for sure. And maybe you were completely bored. I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of people just clicked off this video. It's fine. It's my second channel. I don't care. I'm probably going to do, videos on Nezarec. A few more in the future. I already have the Church of Nezarec one in the works. I'm completely consumed by college at the moment. But I think what's going to happen is, as I begin talking about these things, there are going to be people who chirp up and say, well, you were wrong because the lore says he's a disciple. And my response will always be, we will need to see more. And we're going to see more. I think Nezarec's going to come back soon. And that's that. This is really the underlying, I guess, issue that's going on with this character. And it's affecting pretty much every aspect of the lore that I write about him in regards to videos. And I think the more people who... I don't see the disciple thing as an end-all, like, that's the end of it. I think it's a puzzle. I think it's a mystery. I think that this is a very mysterious character, and yet I think people are interpreting this as just canon and a fact, and they're leaving it at that. And what I'm hoping is that for anybody who does watch this whole thing, I'm really hoping that you look at this character, you look at what they represent, you look at how they've been portrayed, and you don't just end your, I guess, perception of this character. You don't just finalize your opinion of the character with that cutscene. Because as I'm going to show on the main channel, there's still more going on. Oh, that's that. If you did watch the whole thing, great. I hope you found it enjoyable. This is a very different style of content. I don't think I've ever really done this before. This is probably closer to the kind of stuff that I do on streams. And that's pretty much that.